What's up, everybody? You are listening to Switch Flicks, the podcast where we love and hate movies at the same time. I'm your host, Omar, and I'm with my favorite coked up 1980s villain, Haysam.
You know, Gal Gadot and my girlfriend have a lot in common.
Do they?
Yeah. One of them is Wonder Woman, and the other, I often wonder if she's a woman.
The rules of the podcast are simple. Haysam and I review something. One of us will have to love it. One of us will have to hate it. And who does what will be determined by the flip of a coin.
The coin of fate?
The coin of fate.
The coin of fate.
The catch is that at any point in our debate, we can use the switch to change positions. So if you loved it, you now hate it. And if you hated it, you now love it. Today, we are reviewing Wonder Woman 1984. Let us begin with our patented one-breath synopsis.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Okay, fine.
I would like you to do it in a, in the accent of an Amazonian
God.
Goddess.
Okay.
Okay, in that strange hybrid accent that they all have on that island.
All right. I'll do my best. Wonder Woman 1984, stylized as WW84, is a 2020 American superhero film based on the DC Comics character Wonder Woman. It is the sequel to 2017's Wonder Woman and the ninth installment in the DC Extended Universe DCEU. The film is directed by Patty Jenkins. Set in 1984 during the Cold War, the film follows the titular character on her mission to thwart Maxwell Lord and the Cheetah after Lord finds a magical stone that grants any wish but at great cost. Was that right?
That was fantastic.
Was it?
Like, I thought you were an Amazonian goddess.
I felt empowered. It was empowering. Time to flip the coin.
I'm now going to flip the coin of fate. If it lands on heads, you have to love this movie. If it lands on tails, you have to hate it. Here goes nothing.
Here we go.
Heads.
Oh, I have to love it. Wonder Woman 1984 transported us back to that golden era, that wonderful time of joy and color and excitement and boundless potential of the mid-'80s. And it did so within the scope of an empowering movie full of incredibly important messages about the importance of strength, of womanhood, and of truth and fairness.
Wonder Woman 1984 transported us to the coke-filled nightmare that was the 80s. This is a film that is silly, makes absolutely no sense, and just isn't even fun.
This is Superman, Richard Donner. All right? This had the same genetic code as that wondrous experience that we had as children. It allowed us to relive that wonder, that sense of innocence.
Not Richard Donner kebab. Like, this movie is junk. It is junk food, right? The movie is full of plot holes. It is overlong, overstuffed. Just because the first Wonder Woman movie was such a success, it went to Patty Jenkins' head, and she's made this complete garbage fire.
How dare you? How dare you speak ill of Patty Jenkins, okay? It's just because you are a toxic male. That's why you're talking badly about Patty Jenkins. Look, she had the vision. She had the purpose. She had the unique perspective on Wonder Woman that was able to make her relevant to anyone today, because what Wonder Woman did was, yes, it was set in 1984, but it served as a lesson for people who live today that, we need to be careful of repeating the mistakes of the past.
Well, okay. This movie repeats the mistakes of the past. The final act of the original Wonder Woman is so terrible, and this movie is a feature-length version of that. Let's talk about some of the specifics in this movie.
Go for it.
Let's start with just kind of the basic plot structure of it. So the bad guy...
The whimsical plot structure of it, okay?
Okay, sure, yeah, explain further.
All right, well, let's talk about the incredibly original and creative tool that was used to move the plot forward of the magic wishing stone.
Right now, you are the creative tool.
Switch.
Right now, you are a creative genius.
Yes.
To be able to find anything wrong with this movie. Okay? So this movie reminds me of my childhood. It's like watching those, reading the Silver Age comics, watching those cartoons.
It was damaged.
Right?
It was
the movie
rapey.
starts off...
Was your childhood rapey? Because that's what happened in this movie.
Wow.
A man was literally raped.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
You and your hashtag meant to mentality is the problem with this movie. You are one of those people who think, men are the victims.
Okay, look, let's put it into context. All right, let's put it into context.
Yeah.
So in this movie, you've got Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, who gets introduced twice for some weird reason with a double intro, totally unrelated. Maybe they had to fulfill some contractual obligation to have all these Amazon warriors show up in the beginning of the film.
That beginning section is very exciting.
Fine. That's
Okay.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, it is exciting if you are a 4-year-old child.
Well, this movie is for all ages. It is for the 4-year-olds and it is for the people who were there in the 80s.
Then, soon enough, what happens is that this, plot device, really,
Yes.
was used to, it was introduced into the story that grants wishes. Come on, what low-hanging fruit? And the wish that Wonder Woman makes is, of all things, to wish back for her long-lost love, who she had a fling with 70 years before.
We all know that you grab your low-hanging fruit and make wishes all the time, right? So you
None
should
of them
really
come true, though. That's the difference. None of them come true.
You should connect to the plot of this film.
Now, what happens at that point, okay, is that he appears in the body of another human being.
Yes, this is that kind of magical movie making that took place in the 80s. Movies like Mannequin. When we didn't ask these kind of questions, this is from a simpler time, and this is what movies are. Not all movies need to be realistic.
There's an evolution of awareness through the ages. You don't make a movie like they did in 1980. Otherwise, you'd be redoing Caddyshack and you'd be doing Animal House. Do you think those would fly now? No
Those
way.
are incredible
People,
movies.
For the time, not for now. Come on, we've matured since then.
bullshit like this, right? Where you can't just enjoy a movie for what it is. We all need to be so sensitive about everything.
Movies make an impact on cultural identity and awareness. It affects the way that people see themselves and see each other.
So you're telling me that because Steve comes back in the body of another man...
Another man who never consented to have his body used as some sort of sex toy with Wonder Woman. Look, and he was not aware of it.
Because you can't find anything truly wrong with this movie, that's why you have to pick on these social issues to find any kind of flaws, right? That everything about Steve Trevor coming back is so great. Steve Pine, so charismatic. The fish out of water scenes are so funny.
Chris Pine, okay? He's so boring and forgettable that you forgot his name.
What did I say? What did I call him?
You said Steve Pine. Who the hell is Steve Pine?
Steve is his character's
I don't even
name.
know who Steve Pine is.
Steve is his character's name, and Gal Gadot was pining for
Tim
him.
Apple.
Steve Pine is what I was saying.
Listen, what? The point is that is just one of the numerous flaws in this film. Every single pothole that piled on top of each other to create this mess, this total mess of garbage.
Switch.
Is what I would be talking about a different film if it was the polar opposite of this one, which was A Beautiful Mountain of Joy, a beautifully crafted film that was done with care and love and attention, with heart. Okay?
There is no attention paid to anything in this movie. The internal logic of the film makes no sense. The rules of this whole wishing stone makes no sense. And let's talk about some of the special effects. Cheetah. Holy shit. Not since Cats have we seen special effects this bad.
Okay, listen, all right? Special effects, all right, are difficult, all right? They are hard to do, okay? And when you have somebody as iconic as Cheetah, of course you're going to have all of these different people that want to bring her down. But really, Cheetah looked intimidating, sexy, lithe, okay, acrobatic,
Yes.
okay. And, if you were to look back at like a few years ago, this type of animation wouldn't have even been possible, okay? They were pushing the envelope with Cheetah, pushing the envelope.
This is like this kind of animation would not have been possible because cocaine wasn't allowed in the studios where animation was taking place. Not only is Cheetah terrible, so is Christian Wiig playing it.
If I had
Who
a
thought
wish,
that was a good casting choice?
it would be that Christian Wiig play more empowered characters like that. in
Empowered.
every
Her main
possible.
thing is that she can't walk in heels. Oh, now she's a badass. She
That
can
is
walk
a
in heels.
metaphor. It's a metaphor. How could you be so dumb as to take that literally? It's a metaphor.
Because
okay?
they keep showing it. A woman's place is to pine over
Did
Steve.
you see how many?
Okay.
Which one,
And-
Steve Pine or Steve?
Pine over Steve.
Yeah.
The whole movie, Wonder Woman is just
Do
like.
you see how many rapey men's asses were kicked in that film?
One.
Okay, there were so many, many more than one.
It's just that one guy who's always drunk and hanging out on the streets of DC every night.
That is a real individual. Okay, that was an actual person who does that.
So,
okay.
right. And so, no, let's talk about, what was I saying?
And the special effects were fantastic, okay? Did you see how she was flying through the air, using her lasso of truth to catch lightning bolts?
Let's talk-
oh my God, that was inspiring.
What a terrible sequence. Everything to do with her flying. So first, let's talk about how they decide to steal a jet to go to Egypt. One,
Genius.
Jets don't fly that far. Like fighter jets
Okay,
don't fly
but you
that
weren't
far.
there with them the entire journey. What if they stopped and refueled? You don't know that, okay? Plus, it was an invisible jet, okay? So nobody saw them. Therefore, they could land wherever they wanted to, because I know you were going to bring that up, okay?
and-
Third of all, they managed to bring the ability of creating an invisible jet into it at the same time as they introduced her flight powers, able to put so much excitement into one movie.
They shoehorned all of that in just so they could have the invisible jet merchandise. And where do they go?
And
They go
how
to
do you have an invisible jet merchandise? That is an invisible jet. Show me an invisible jet.
It's right there. Can't you see it? It's invisible. No, and then they go to Egypt, and let's just talk about the problematic.
What I love about Egypt is the representation of Arabs. Okay, very realistic.
Very realistic.
Very realistic.
They're
okay?
like towels around their head, and they're talking about the infidels and
Yes,
and our
because-
ancestor.
Yes, as an Arab, I
Yes.
approve of this representation because it made us empowered. It made us seem very determined to right the wrongs of the past. I mean, that is what that, Arab dude, the Egyptian guy, wanted. He just wanted his ancestral lands. As a Palestinian, I can relate. I want my ancestral lands too. I'd make that wish.
Egypt doesn't even have oil. Why is he going to Egypt to get oil?
It doesn't have any more oil because it was taken in the 80s. Do you see?
Of course.
Right?
Right.
That time that Wonder Woman
Okay.
came to Egypt.
As a Palestinian, how do you feel about the fact that, there's just a wall that comes in the middle of the thing and it cuts off the water to all the people?
I felt heard. Okay? I
Hurt.
felt heard. I felt like I was heard.
Heard like a sheep, like sheep.
No, listen. This is the great thing about Hollywood, okay? You get these really ballsy filmmakers like Patty Jenkins introducing these revolutionary ideas into modern blockbuster films, showing the wall of separation as the horrible, horrible thing that it is.
Right.
Do you see?
Okay.
You see what I mean?
No,
So
I don't.
yes,
Your point is like an invisible jet. Nobody can see it and it makes no sense.
switch.
Your point is like an invisible jet. It needs to be refueled and flown by a person who truly understands this movie, like me. So I will explain Arabs
Okay,
and
now
Arab culture
I have
to
to
you.
say that was an impressive switch.
Thank
though.
you.
Well done.
I will tell you about what it means to be Arab as an Indian person. Okay, I think that as someone who was once married to an Egyptian,
Yes.
when I saw Egypt in that movie, there was a tear in my eye because I remembered my ex-wife. But also, because I thought to myself, finally, a movie that understands the politics of the 80s. This movie is about the politics of the 80s.
What does that have to do with Egypt? You said that you just
about
did
the
a
politics
segue
of the Middle East,
in
the
the
Cold
80s.
War
Okay.
in the 80s.
Right.
This movie kind of shows what people's thoughts were about the Middle East in the
shows
80s.
yet another white savior flying in to save these two ratty Arab children that are running away from these overly militarized Arabs.
Gal
okay?
Gadot, Wonder Woman isn't white. She's Amazonian. Okay? It's very different from white. Right? And let's talk about the ending of this movie. So heartwarming when she gives a speech, the speech that gets to the depth of what it means to be human, that shows that people on the inside are all good.
Okay, well, look, besides the fact that it's incredibly problematic that you had this global changing, like globe affecting phenomenon in 1984 in the DCEU that no one ever spoke about since,
Yes.
right? Where some magic stone gave everyone the ability to give people wishes,
Yes.
okay? And everyone was incredibly selfish and had horrible wishes that basically practically destroyed the planet.
Yes.
And that was never spoken of again.
Yeah, but it's magic.
But it's magic.
Okay.
Okay. Besides that, at the end.
Plus, it was
all
the
right,
80s. Everybody was on coke. Nobody remembers.
Well, I mean, fair point.
Yes.
But you then had, Pedro Pascal's character,
Who is
Maxwell.
He is so great in this movie,
Maxwell
by the
Lord.
way. Really just underplays the character of a coke-fueled tech mogul, oil baron.
Right, because it might as well have been a tech mogul.
Yes,
because
exactly.
it was that generic. His
No, because-
portrayal.
because
All right?
the
Get that
movie-
Mandalorian mask on his face right now and shut him up and put him away in the corner. He was appalling.
Okay.
Over the top. All right.
But let's talk about the politics that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Right? This movie really gets to the heart of what it means, especially now in the time of the pandemic when there is so much hopelessness, to see that inherently we're all good and we just need a figure.
That's not at all what it shows.
We just need a figure like Wonder Woman out
a
there.
god figure that is inhuman
To
who's half god.
Wonder
to
Woman is
motivate
one
us.
of us.
She's
Okay?
a half god Amazonian princess from another world.
She's one of us,
like-
right? To bring hope, and that inherently we're all good and we all just come together to save the world. At the end, it's not Wonder Woman who saves the world. It is the people who save themselves through the goodness in their hearts.
No.
And that's what ultimately the movie's about, and that's what we need in 2020.
No, it is actually Wonder Woman who somehow speaks English to everybody through this magical transmission that speaks to absolutely everyone on the planet.
But yeah, it's
to use the
magic.
magical wishing stone that can actually do anything you want, that has no rules, to convince every single human being, including sick children, the impoverished,
Yeah.
anyone whose relative just recently died, to revoke their wishes, okay, and bring the planet back into balance.
Switch.
Flawless logic. Absolutely airtight plotting. Not since Looper have I seen this type of foolproof writing. Really.
Right.
It completely...
It is writing
by
that
using
proves that you're a fool if you fall for it. I think that's what you mean.
Well, I think we have reached the natural conclusion of this debate.
Yeah.
Now, Haysam.
I feel like we didn't even get to the heart of like so much that is wrong with this film, right?
Exactly. That's the problem. It's so bad. This is quite possibly the worst movie that I've seen this year. To be fair, I haven't seen
Yeah.
any, that many movies in theaters this year, but I saw New Mutants.
Yep.
And that was okay, maybe that wasn't better than this, but they were pretty much at the same level.
I think New Mutants was better than this.
You think New Mutants was better?
I'll tell you, I think New Mutants is just so blah.
Yeah.
It's nothing, right? This movie's bad.
At least New Mutants tried to kind of have some sort of inner logic. It had some sort of story. It was, and I'm not saying that it was a good movie.
Yeah.
This was a total garbage dumpster fire of a mess. Like, none of it made sense. It jumped all over the place. it was so badly written.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, people keep saying, yeah, Gal Gadot was great. Fine. Gal Gadot as an actress. Good.
Okay.
Yeah, she's fine. She's fine. She's a good Wonder Woman. She doesn't she looks the part.
She's
Who cares?
a
That's not good
superstar.
enough. She's a superstar. That's not enough.
Yeah, no.
Not even close to spackle the cracks in this movie. This movie fell apart so badly that I remember when we were in the theater, because we luckily were able to see it in theater here with nobody else in the theater, just you, me, and our friend.
Yes.
Roxy. We were able to make fun of it the entire time, pretty much, which was way more entertaining than the film itself.
I think I don't even know where to start. Okay, for one, the movie is like 2.5 hours long, right?
Oh my God, it's as long as Tenet.
For absolutely no reason, because the story, the plot of the movie does not need something that's this long. There's a wishing stone and there's a cheetah and people are making wishes. That's what this movie is about, right? Why is it 2.5 hours long? And then it's overstuffed with all this kind of nonsense. And anytime something new happens, you're kind of going, wait, why? What? What's the logic behind this?
Yeah.
So what is this? I was thinking about this idea. I think the biggest problem is, well, there's so many problems.
There's so many
I can't
problems.
even say the biggest problem. But the problem with the writing is that it starts off with this whole wishing stone thing that it does, right? But it doesn't explain what the wishing stone
There are no
really
rules. There's
does.
no rules. The wishing stone is just a do whatever you want
Yes.
device.
Right? The idea being that you make a wish, but it takes something in return, right? And then Pedro Pascal wishes that he was the stone.
And then he's deciding what to take in return. It's supposed to take in return the thing that's most important to you.
Yes.
But somehow Pedro Pascal, whenever he gets someone to make a wish, chooses what he takes from in return.
And the thing is that when that starts happening in the movie, we don't know that the stone takes anything in return.
No, that kind of comes into play later.
That happens, like, they explain that an hour and a half. And by then, Pedro Pascal's still been taking things from people.
his
And you're just
health is
kind of like,
going,
and you're just kind of like, wait, what's his plan?
And for
What's
some
going
reason, his
on?
health is more important than his kid.
Yeah.
Which
His
doesn't
very
make sense.
Asian
I thought
kid.
his kid, who doesn't look a thing like him, fine, I guess he's adopted, but like, at least address it.
Right. And
like, at least mention something. Like, why is it so weird?
And this whole idea that Wonder Woman's powers are the thing that's most important to her
I
doesn't
thought her
make
sense
any
of
sense.
like justice and her goodness is important. You know?
I guess, and this whole, and she's been like stuck up on like Steve Trevor for like 70 years. She met her for like 3 days in the original movie, and that like she can't get over him for whatever reason, and like anything.
This is the most anti-feminist movie made by a woman who I would have thought would have been a lot more kind of like, you know, I don't know, interesting. Like, why does it have to be about like this so many cliches, like this cliche about a long lost love that she's pining for, huh? Then there's the cliche about the geeky woman who then, you know, becomes like empowered because she suddenly looks sexy. Like, that's so boring. It's done to death. It's such a cliche. It's such a dumb trope, you know? And then there's like the 80s jokes, which were fun.
Kinda.
But whatever. Like, they were fun. They were like, oh, that's cute. But like, okay, you can't build a fucking movie out of it.
It's fun in the trailers, and then they've already seen it by then. And then in the movie, it's like even the 80s part of it, it's called 1984. And they do that for a bit where there's like the first action scene is in the mall. But after
it's overdone. Like, it
Yeah,
didn't feel real. It felt like it was so over the top
Like
that it
a parody.
felt like a parody of the 80s as
Yeah.
opposed to it feeling like the 80s. Like,
but then after that, the whole 80s thing doesn't really matter after
really.
that opening sequence.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay, we've been complaining about this movie a lot. Is there anything you liked?
Is there anything I liked? I know that some people enjoyed that opening sequence. I did not. I didn't care at all for that opening, like, gladiator sequence. Like, who cares? Why does that matter? Fine.
Yeah.
Was it better shot than the rest? I guess.
Yeah.
You know? I kind of liked Pedro Pascal just because he was so over the top. And immediately I was like, this guy's coked out of his mind.
Yeah.
So I watched him through the lens of seeing someone who is completely like flying high the whole time. And that was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I like that I liked his kind of emotional kind of wackiness, you know. I enjoyed what's her name, Kristen Wiig's kind of being Kirsten Wiig, you know, for a little bit. Because, I mean, I just think she's good at being Kirsten Wiig. So, you know, you shouldn't get someone else to be Kirsten Wiig. But she was no cheetah. She was no, like, none of that made sense, you know. I didn't like the fight scenes, of which there were so few. I enjoyed Steve... what's his name?
Chris Pine.
Steve's kind of reaction to the 80s.
Yeah, and he's charming. Chris Pine's a
I like
charming
him.
guy.
Chris Pine's a charming guy. He's probably the highlight of the film.
Yeah.
Like, because it was fun to see him react to what was going on. I like the fact that his awe and wonder were a nice kind of touch. But I mean,
Yeah, you have to like really.
You have to stretch. You're really
You have to
stretching
stretch, and it doesn't come together in anything cohesive.
And the special effects were pretty bad.
Yeah, no, it's bad. Especially that final action sequence with Cheetah when it's just kind of dark and you don't know what's going on.
It reminded me of Game of Thrones final season.
Yeah, and I think again there's nothing in this movie that compares to the No Man's Land action sequence in the original.
No, the original was way better. I enjoyed the original. I thought it was a really nice, well-made film, but like this is just really
Before we end, can you just tell people about what happened during the beginning of the movie when we went to watch it?
Yeah, I can. We walked into the theater. We were the only people there, just the three of us. We had sat wherever we wanted to, right in the middle, and we were watching it. And after a couple of seconds, all of a sudden, the image becomes like really dark, like noticeably dull colors. Everything kind of switched, like a light switch had turned off. So I'm like, no, this is unacceptable. So I go out, I bring the bellboy, whatever it's called, what
Usher.
Usher, sorry, not bellboy. I bring the usher in, and I'm like, hey, it became dark. So he's like, oh, okay, sir. I was like, yeah, it's dark. He's like, it's 1984. I said, what do you mean? He's like, it's supposed to be 1984, so it looks dark. I was like, do you think that as time passes, the past is darker and like the future is brighter? Like, what are you talking about? Why would it be darker?
And then it became pink, like the film became pink.
Then he made a call. It became pink. And then it settled back, and I felt, vindicated. And then we watched one of the worst movies of all time.
How many?
Two. I'll give it 2 Amazonian
whips.
Oh, wow.
2. I'll give it a 3.
Wow. Generous.
Generous.
Very generous.
Because I think, as awful, I think partly because it was kind of awful and we watched it together and it was kind of fun
You
to
have
just
good memories
kind
of
of,
it.
I have good
that
memories.
extra one is for the memories.
Yeah, exactly. For the memories.
For the memories.
Of the 80s.
Of the 80s that we lived through. So thank you for listening to Switch Flicks. If you loved or hated the show, please do rate, subscribe, and leave some comments. And we will see you next time.